What would happen if you took Chester Gould's Dick Tracy and mixed it with Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver? Well, that's the subject of today's video, because today we're talking about Marti's Cabbie, the definitive edition by Fantagraphics. Stay tuned and watch this video until the end. Yes, my name is Taylor. This is Taylor Talks Comics. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below with your thoughts. I really appreciate that. But today we're talking about Cabbie from Fantagraphics. Marti was this great cartoonist in the 80s that created this character and was putting these comics out in a anthologized magazine called El Vibora. Now, if you're familiar with like Garo magazine from Japan or Raw magazine from the United States or Metal Hurlant in Europe, around the same time, Garo was the 60s, Metal Hurlant in the 70s, Raw magazine in the 80s. Around the same time, there was a comic book called El Vibora that Marti was putting his comics in. Now, he was wanting to do a satirical parody type deal of Taxi Driver.
You talking to me? You talking to me?
Where did you come from?
You talking to me?
No, I'm not talking about you.
Well, who the hell else are you talking to? Talking to me?
No, the viewers. The viewers are who I'm talking to.
Well, I'm the only one here.
No, actually, I do have some viewers watching this. Thank you.
Who the fuck do you think you're talking to?
Hey, you can't talk like that on this channel. Jeez.
Oh, yeah? Huh? Okay.
Yeah, get out of here. Sorry about that. Anyway, so
I'm standing here. You make the move. You make the move. It's your move.
You want to fight me now? I'm sorry. I'm going to flip this camera around, put this book under the microscope. Stay tuned. Jeez. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's show off this book under the microscope and talk about what this story and this comic is all about. So this is Marti, the Cabbie Definitive Edition. You can see it collects volumes 1 and 2. Great cover here. Love the spine. It's going to look great on the shelf. It says the Cabbie real big. And then here's the back of the book. And just show you off real quickly, it is oversized. So here's your typical single issue comic book. You can see how it's taller than and wider than that. Really stark yellow in papers. Makes sense because it's about a cab driver, right? In papers front and back are the same. Here's the title page. And over here you can see the credits. Sarah Sands is credited as a designer here. I'm not familiar with her design work, but this is a really well designed book, so kudos to her on that. Production was by Paul Baresh and Ben Horick, and where's the I think it credits them later, the translator. And shout out to Tucker Stone. Tucker Stone's the gentleman from Fantagraphics that sent me out this book and this review copy. All right, so here's Cabbie, the Definitive Edition. We get another great image here showing off the opening. Now we have two introductions here. The first one is written by Art Spiegelman. This was written in 1987. And he's talking about what makes Marti's Cabbie so special, and talks about his first interaction with this character in these comics, being from the early El Vibora magazine that I talked about in the intro, was starting to reprint artists like Robert Crumb, Gilbert Shelton, Bill Griffith, Kim Deitch, and Art Spiegelman himself. So they're translating it over in Europe, and through those translations, Art Spiegelman came across these comics. It also shows all the references too, where we get like the original Scarface, Taxi Driver, which you saw in the intro, right? Robert De Niro. And then we see some Chester Gould panels here, just spotlighting some of the similar treatment here. And as far as design, I love this stark yellow as a backdrop here. The next introduction is by Ruben Lardin. Not familiar with his work. He was born in Barcelona in 1972. He's a multimedia writer, editor, and curator who specializes in films and comics. So it makes you want to seek out some more of Ruben's work and see if he's doing more kind of historical stuff on comics. And here's their first cover. Now, if you've had the first original edition of the Cabbie from Fantagraphics, it only collected volume 1. And this was the cover, and I think it was a hardcover. I never owned it. I always had my eye on it, wanting to read these comics. But then when I saw on the solicits that this was coming out, I was like, okay, I'm just going to wait for this because this has everything in it. This is every strip that Marti ever did it from Cabbie. Fantagraphics only printed the volume 1 hardcover. I guess there's a volume 2 that was on the way that never came to be. And Catalan, back in the day, I forget what they collected, but they collected some Cabbie strips as well. I don't know if it was just a volume 1 or if it had anything else in it. But this is the first time in English that everything's been collected in one cover. So this is the definitive edition, like it says. Now we get into the strips. There's also, was that table of contents back here? Or is that... No, there's no table of contents, but in the back we'll see, it tells you where all the strips came from. Oh, here's the contents. It tells you where all the strips came from in the years that all these strips were done in, and what page these are all on. So basically, you can kind of see on the end papers here too, or not the end papers, but the edges of the paper where volume 1 begins and ends. So you got volume 1 here in these pages, and then this is the cover for volume 2. And then there is a volume 3 that has very little in it, but here's the official preview of volume 3, this short little strip here, and then we get a bunch of back matter. So there is a delineation over which is volume 1 and 2 and 3. But back to the volume 1 here. So what you'll see here is, and this is talked about in the introduction as well, is that Martí was talking or wanting to do a strip that was a honorable love letter to Chester Gould's Dick Tracy, as well as being like fueled by his love and affection for the movie Taxi Driver by Martin Scorsese. So you get this character Cabbie Dorsden. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name. And he is a very Ayn Rand kind of black and white, like what Steve Ditko would do with like Mr. A kind of thing. Black and white character, right or wrong. There's very strict rules on that. I think someone even compared him in one of the introductions to Rorschach from Watchmen, and how Marti eventually kind of had a disdain for that. People were missing out on the fact that it was supposed to be an ironic satire of these characters, and people were wanting it to be like this cool Rorschach thing. Which, again, if you even go deeper down that rabbit hole, you can say that like Alan Moore even thought Rorschach was misunderstood when people thought he was cool and he wasn't supposed to be this cool character. But I digress. All of the social and political commentaries of this kind of right-wing nut job taking the law in his own hands in almost like a fascistic way is all here. And it's very amusing. It's very violent. It pushes the envelope further than what even Chester Gould would do. And I liked in the introduction too, I think it was from Ruben Ordine's introduction, where he talked about how this isn't just a love letter to Chester Gould, that he was actually perfecting and kind of like improving upon what Chester Gould would do with his comics. And it kind of reminded me of a way, I think he made some reference to, no, I think actually this was the Art Spiegelman introduction. He made some reference to like Don Quixote in some sort of book. I don't know. I didn't get that reference because I didn't read whatever he was talking about. But to me, it kind of reminded me of Tom Scioli. And Tom Scioli, who had early in his career, was doing this very much Jack Kirby love letter to his comics. But it wasn't just a Jack Kirby love letter. It was like Jack Kirby he was like, I don't want to say improving upon it because there's nothing wrong with Jack Kirby's work, but taking it to the next level, putting it into a new audience, putting his own spin on the thing. And that's kind of what I've derived from this with Chester Gould's work in relation to Marti's Cabbie strips. So this was originally called Taxista, and when it was in the first language that it was published in, they changed it to the Cabbie in when it was translated into English. Now, so I cited Chester Gould, I cited Taxi Driver. This also has like such an infusion of like the underground comics scene from America in the 60s. Like you think of like the aforementioned Robert Crumb, I think S. Clay Wilson, just some of like the subject matter or the way he pushes the envelope and things. Spain Rodriguez, I'd say as well. Not in the art style, but in the storytelling dynamics. Because this is very much mature for mature audiences. This comic is. It's not for kids at all. Like Chester Gould's Dick Tracy could be read. It was in the newspaper, so kids could read that, even though it had some violent nature. But this is like total underground comics with an X. I would not put this in a kid's hands. But one thing I also kind of got from this was Charles Burns. I think there's a lot of Charles Burns kind of layers to this, and I don't know. I think Charles Burns early in his career was right around the same time as this, so I don't know if there was an influence of one to the other, or if they even were aware of each other, or if it's just a coincidence kind of thing. But just being a Charles Burns fan, you even see like on the feathering with the ink style on some of these spots. There's a very kind of a Charles Burns aspect to these characters and the subject matter, this like surreal kind of aspects to a lot of what's going on that I really enjoyed as well. Like just like all in the brushwork too, especially in these later strips. I see some Charles Burns stuff going on there. But yeah, so this is amusing, it's violent, it's over the top, it's it borders on like, is it satire and irony, or is it just like dumb comedic fun, or is it like this really smart satire? Another cartoonist I would kind of compare my feelings to this would be Johnny Ryan. Johnny Ryan, whenever I read his comics, I think like these are like over the top, they're violent, they're gross, they're disgusting, they're offensive to anybody's sensibilities. But are they also like this really smart satirical commentary on the world and the dynamics that we have, or is it just a dumb comic? And I don't know the like answer to that when I read Johnny Ryan comics. I don't know if it's like he's like smarter than everyone in the room, and he's actually using this really dumb, gross comic to expound upon that, or if it's just him making a dumb, gross comic. I don't know the answer to that, and I almost don't want to know the answer to that. I think that's kind of the enjoyment I get out of Johnny Ryan comics, and I kind of got that aspect of reading this too. It's like, I don't know if he's just making this dumb Chester Gould comic, or if he's actually having this really intelligent conversation with the reader about the social and political dynamics of the world. But either way, you're going to get something from this. I don't know what you'll get from it, but I'd like to know. Let me know in the comments down below. By the way, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. I'd appreciate that as well. So here's a Cabbie 3 preview. This page really threw me for a loop. I don't know the answer to this question. I would like to know the answer if someone knows. But this is the Cabbie 3 preview. Like I said, there's only a few pages that that were made up what was going to be Cabbie 3 before Marti hung it up. Like this was done in like 2009, 2010. And Marti sadly passed away in 2024. So this was done 14 years before his passing. But this preview talks about, I'll just read some of it. The news reports were bewildering. 72 hours from the presidential election, the opposition candidate had won in a landslide. But the lawyers of the now former president were insinuating that he intended to denounce the outcome and claim that the election had been blatantly stolen. The ex-president had built a reputation as a wily, misogynistic, racist man, and he figured how to use the power of television to catapult himself into politics. That obviously is a very exact to what we dealt with here in America, and whether or not whose ever side you're on, whoever you voted for, you can't deny that was some sort of commentary towards President Trump from one side or the other. But I don't know when this was written, because this is such an exact commentary on exactly what happened with President Trump after the 2020 election. And then even later it says, Sion Wadsworth, a forerunner of figures such as Donald Trump, Bernard Madoff, and Jeffrey Epstein, social climbers completely devoid of scruples. They're talking about because of this elitist mindset of working class stiff who lionizes the modern aristocratic class, he despises the nouveau riche losers like Sion Wadsworth, the forerunner of... So I don't know who wrote this. It doesn't say, it says XXX. I'm assuming this was written after the fact. But the strip of Cabbie 3 is about a president trying to run away. And it doesn't exactly mirror exactly what the preview talked about, but it does include some really weird aspects to that. I don't know. If you know the answer to the question, I'd like to know. I don't know if that was written after the fact by someone else. Here's the Guardian Angel Cab Company logo. And then here's some like back matter. Here's the back matter of the book, showing off some other artwork from Marti. And like I said in the contents, I'll tell you where this where these pieces appeared in and when they were done. So some were done in the 80s, some were done as late as 2004. And again, it's on this kind of brushwork here that kind of gets the Charles Byrne aspect to it. I love this piece too, with the use of white and the stark black. And that's such a just a Charles Burns type face right there too. And here's the cover that was on, they used for El Vibora. Like it said El Vibora up here on the trade dress. So that was the cover piece there. And then, like I said, that's the contents. And here's the original art piece for the cover. You can see that they changed the color a little bit for the cover of the Fantagraphics book. They made it a little bit flatter on the colors, but it's still a really great image. And then here's a little biography of Martí. Oh, and Andrea Rosenberg was the translator. There we go. So that's it. That's Cabbie. I highly recommend this book for anyone that's a fan of underground comics, fan of Taxi Driver, fan of Chester Gould's, Dick Tracy. Let me know in the comments if you're going to pick this up and what your thoughts are on this. I would also, one thing I picked up from here too, the introduction, is I would like to see like a really well done monograph biography of Martí, including all of his comics, because he had a lot of like short strips and stuff that were in anthologies that weren't as extensive as his Cabbie strips, but there's a lot of work there. So a monograph like we have with the I've shown off in my channel with the Basil Wolverton monographs, or like we have some on S. Clay Wilson, like those like half biography, half comic strips and things. I think if Fantagraphics were to put something out like that, I'd buy it up for sure. I want to know more about Martí and his life and the comics that he made. But let me know in the comments your thoughts. Give me a thumbs up on the video, comment down below, and subscribe if you haven't already. And share this with all of your comic book loving friends on Facebook, Reddit, or whatever. And everybody, keep talking comics.